Welcome to another episode of Tradeshow Media Today. I'm your host, Paul Barron, and today we're going to be talking about content and how it affects your trade show and association with one of the best content experts out there, Rebecca Lieb from the Altimeter Group, right here on Tradeshow Media Today. Hi Rebecca, welcome to the show. We want to thank you so much for spending time with us today. First of all, we'd like to learn a little bit about you and who you're with.
Hey Paul, so delighted to be here and to be speaking with you. My name is Rebecca Lieb. I'm a digital media and advertising analyst at the Altimeter Group and also the author of two books, one on search engine optimization and more recently one on content marketing.
So that's really the topic of today's show, Rebecca, is content marketing and how brands and companies are utilizing content to really kind of tell a new story. First of all, tell us a little bit about the book itself, what inspired you to write it, and maybe a takeaway that you're seeing really resonate with the readers.
Well, as the internet and digital channels have developed, it's really become clear, at least to me, that everybody with a website or a digital presence of any kind online, even if it's just in social media, is a publisher. You're pushing content out onto the web. You're pushing out stories and information, a lot of images, maps, infographics. So in order to do that, and as somebody with a strong editorial background, I've realized that everybody's a publisher. And in order to really leverage marketing in digital channels, it's become increasingly critical to start thinking like a publisher, to lay a strategic foundation for content, and to develop expertise. Content can be a really effective digital marketing tool. It's a lot cheaper than advertising, which is when you're buying or renting media rather than putting media on owned channels or places on the web that you control. But there are still rules of engagement that you have to observe and planning that you have to do in order to do this effectively and not burn out or run out of ideas.
Right. So this whole theory and concept of brands becoming publishers, obviously this is definitely starting to tilt the landscape a bit when you look at how consumers and also even in the B2B space, how people view content as a whole, to where is it advertorial, is it more driven toward just talking about themselves? What are some of the things that you're seeing in terms of strategies of businesses that do look at creating a content platform in a way that a consumer says, oh, this is really useful to me?
Well, for one thing, content is not advertising. Advertising interrupts people. Very few people go to advertising. Content is something that's compelling enough that consumers want to tune into it. They want to watch it. They want to read it. And in order to do that, in order to address consumers, you have to know who consumers are, understand why they might want to come to you on the internet, watch your video, or read your story. I've identified really three fundamental types of content that brands are using to engage consumers in digital channels. The first is entertaining content. That's the funny YouTube video, the viral video, the interesting stories that you want to share with friends. The second type of content I call informational or informative. It's for products perhaps with a long sales cycle, things that you need to understand better. It's educating and explaining things to people. And the third type of content, and people are very often surprised at this type of content, is utility content. They're tools that help you do something like convert cups to liters when you're cooking if you want to translate a recipe, or a body mass index calculator for dieters, or mobile tools. One of my favorite examples of this is Charmin, the toilet paper people, who you would think would not be able to produce any kind of content people would opt into. They've we've created a mobile phone application that helps you find the nearest clean bathroom with user ratings and photographs. That's really useful content, and I think we've all been in a position where we might want to use that.
I think those are really good examples and also great breakdowns of the types of content. Let's talk a little bit about the strategy when companies are out there producing content, and in most cases, if they're not a publisher, obviously they may have never worked with an editorial calendar or fact checking or all the things that come into publishing as part of that. Do you see any challenges from within organizations to really create high value content in a way that people are really going to consume it? What are some of the steps that maybe organizations need to look at taking?
I'm very glad you asked that, because I draw a very strong distinction between content strategy and content marketing. So content marketing is actually the creative part of this. It's creating the content and pushing it out there. But before you start creating willy-nilly, you have to lay a strong strategic foundation for what you're going to create, how you're going to create, the tools you need to do it, the schedule you're going to do it on. You have to assign different tasks to people, and that's really content strategy. That's governance, and that's a foundation. So there are a number of different steps to creating a strategy. Number one is doing customer research and developing the personas of the types of customers that your content is going to speak to, so you know who you're talking to, how they like to be spoken to, what their problems are, what their interests are, and what their pain points are. If you're running a restaurant, you might know that during the day you serve families, at night you might get a little more romantic and serve couples. Those are different types of consumers. You also want to do a little bit of keyword research. You want your content to be found on the internet, so you need to know the words and the phrases that users are looking for you on the web with, and there are free tools to do this with. All the search engines have keyword research tools. You want to develop an editorial calendar so that you know what you're going to publish and when you're going to publish it. So, it helps to keep you on track when you're producing content if you know that every Tuesday, for example, you'll publish an interview with one of your executives or one of your customers. Wednesdays, you'll feature a recipe. Thursdays, you might have a travel tip. Right. It just keeps you on track.
Okay, so that's another great example. And when you look at content in general and using it to really kind of remap the way that communication is done from a business, let's talk about, the typical content that most people talk about today. Of course, as you said, is video. You've got infographics, blog, all sorts of social content out there, from photography to even post to a certain extent, mobile apps and things of that nature. Are there any specific trends that you're starting to see for, let's go with B2B first, and then we can kind of break into B2C. But in the B2B space, are there any kind of content trends that you see moving down the pipeline that could become maybe more entertaining, whether it's interactive infographics or video shows like this that are very focused on certain segments of the industry? Anything you can share with us there?
Sure, there are absolutely trends, and this is not in my book, but as a research analyst at Altimeter Group, I've just completed a report earlier this year in which I interviewed some 55, 56 major brands, both B2B and B2C, about what they're doing in content marketing now and what they intend to do 3 to 5 years out. And there are some very interesting trends there, because across the board, both B2B and B2C, everybody told me that they want to concentrate less on text, less on the written word, and more on video, more on mobile, and more on images, whether that be photographs, drawings, or infographics. And that's an interesting challenge in content marketing, because while content marketing is much less expensive than advertising, which always necessitates a media buy, these are skills and production curves that are significantly higher than just writing text.
Right.
So as you know, as somebody who produces a video show regularly, you need sound, you need lighting, you need editing equipment. These are not skills that everybody has, and they require additional investment. Ditto infographics, really crisp professional images and images that are tagged for search optimization. So it's very important before jumping in and saying we're going to do video, is making sure that you have the tools and the talent and the skill set necessary to execute on those plans. You might want to start smaller. You're also going to want to try a few different channels and see what works before absolutely committing to just video or just a blog.
I love that. I think, with the sense of, because we have a lot of people that ask us the same questions is, how do you get into it? What's the best way to start? And of course, right now, just because of the proliferation of social and all this content that's being generated, whether it's user-generated or professionally generated by companies, there seems to be a lot of very interesting levels of content, we call it, from the very entry level that is not so value-oriented to the very over-polished high level to where you almost don't trust the content being truly unique in the sense of whether it's a learning or opportunity or something that's
Sure.
pitching a particular product.
In the same research report that I published earlier this year, we identified 5 levels of content marketing maturity.
Okay.
And one of the lower phases is simple experimentation. You can't really embark on this till you throw a few things out there and you see what sticks. Moving up the ladder, you then get into a very formal process where you're very carefully measuring your content. You have workflows in order. You begin to be able to attribute ROI, actual cash return on your content marketing investment. And at the very pinnacle of this maturity model and this is very aspirational, very few of us will ever get there, are companies that are making money off of their content. Companies like Red Bull, which make content that is so professionally produced that are beginning to sell it. They're not just a soft drink and energy drink company, they're actually something akin to a Hollywood studio or a publisher that can make money off of the content that they produce around their brand.
Let's kind of give it a scenario here. Let's say a trade show or an association that have been using a blog or have been using a newsletter to put their information out there. What it sounds to me what you're saying is that there's more advanced opportunities coming down the pipeline for them?
Well, I think that as digital makes everything easier and more accessible, whereas you used to have to hire a film crew to make any kind of, audio-visual content, anybody now with a camera phone can make a video. So, content marketing is not a new thing, but the barriers have lowered so much thanks to digital technology that anybody can jump into it.
Right.
So we're finding that marketers really want to explore more sophisticated content channels, like images, like infographics, and like AV. But this is not to say that you ignore the fundamentals. I do not think that the written word is going to go away. And in fact, different content channels need to inform and feed off of each other. I like to say that content is like a Thanksgiving turkey. Everybody at Thanksgiving sits down for the main event, which is the turkey dinner. But you know that the next day you're going to have turkey sandwiches and turkey salad and so on into the week with turkey hash. Content, too, is expensive. It's hard to come up with all of these good ideas. And you need to break content into pieces and reuse and recycle and remodel it so that you can get value out of it over time and in different channels. It's critical that you do this because you are not going to have a big brainwave every morning when you get out of bed that you're going to be able to create great content around. So make sure that you've got a lot of recipes to keep the content that you have going in different channels.
I love that. I wish we could stay on a little longer. Obviously, this is a great conversation and one that I think we need to continue exploring. First of all, we want to thank you so much for stopping in today on the show. You have been great.
Paul, it's been my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.